Peterson, and I'm the orchestra teacher at Holton, North Hudson, and Rivercrest.
And I'm Rachel Nipfer, and I'm the orchestra teacher at Hudson Prairie, Willow River, and EP Rock.
In this video, we're going to tell you about the orchestra program, the instruments available, and how to register. Orchestra registration is open to all current and 3rd and 4th grade students in the Hudson School District who will be in either 4th or 5th grade next year in the 2021-2022 school year. Orchestra lessons are 30 minutes once a week during the school day. These lesson times are approved by the student's classroom teacher to make sure that they're not missing any crucial information that they can't make up later. It's not during music, phy-ed, life skills, or art, and it is not during recess, so students don't miss that very important time. Our lessons are, like I said, once a week. When the student has their lesson on that day of the week, they bring their instrument to school that morning, and then at the end of the day, they have to bring that instrument home. The instruments cannot be stored at school, so it is important to make sure you have transportation arranged for your students if they're playing a big instrument like cello or bass, as these instruments cannot go on the bus.
Just like any new skill, yes, there is practice at home that will be required. We recommend here in Hudson 10 to 15 minutes 5 times per week. That will help your student be able to make the progress they need to make to participate in orchestra and learn all the things that they need to learn on these new instruments. We do have 2 concerts per year. There's one in January and one in May. Our program is designed for the beginner. No prior playing experience is needed to be able to participate in orchestra, and we teach our students to read music as well as play their instrument. In their very first lesson, they learn how to open the case and take care of the instrument, all the way from the very beginning. We also welcome students that have more playing experience. Perhaps you have a child that has been playing an instrument for a year or more. In a more typical year, they would play with our more advanced 5th grade students. But with COVID, next year, both grades, 4th and 5th grade, they'll be beginners. So students with prior experience can participate in the group class, but they'll be student helper leaders for our beginners. All of this information that we have given you in this video can be found in the program overview slideshow on the registration website.
So we are going to talk about the 4 instruments that you can play in orchestra next year. And we're going to start with the smallest member of the string family, and that's the violin. And I have Allie here to help me demonstrate the violin today. The violin is often called a fiddle, but it's actually the same thing. Violin, fiddle, that's the same instrument. We play it up on our shoulder. If you put it on up there, you can see you actually hold it with your jaw. And we use what's called a bow, this pointy stick that is actually, it's got horsehair on it. And the horsehair is what makes the string on the instrument vibrate. So the violin has actually a pretty big range. Can you play your lowest note? So you can hear it actually can go pretty low. Let's hear a real high note. Woo! Yes, the violin can go really high as well. So the violin, like I said, is the smallest member of the string family. And even though Allie's violin is actually a pretty big size, they do come in different sizes. So all of the string instruments come in smaller sizes. So if you are a smaller student, we can get you a smaller instrument. No matter what size you are, you can play any instrument. So let's hear some more from the violin. Are you ready to play? All right. We are moving on to the second instrument in the strings family, and I have my friend Gray here to help demonstrate the viola. So if you hold the viola up, so you can see the viola looks a lot like the violin. It is a little bit longer, and it's a little bit chunkier in the middle here, so it's a little bit thicker. It's played the same way, so you put it on your shoulder and show. You play it under your jaw, just like you play the violin. You use a bow, which looks very similar to the violin bow, but it has a little bit of a lower, more mellow sound. Why don't you play your lowest note? So that's what the low note on the viola sounds like, but it can also play pretty high too. Yes, not that you play that high that often, but it can go pretty high. So now I'm gonna have Gray, raise this up a little bit, play a tune for you on the viola, see if you recognize it. All right, the next instrument that we are going to talk about is the cello. And I have my friend Sean here to show a little bit about the cello. You can see that this is much bigger than the viola we just heard. It's so big that we actually have to be sitting down. You have to sit to play the cello. You cannot play it up on your shoulder like a violin or viola. Would that work well? No. So the cello has an end pin. Let's lift this up for a second. And you can see here Sean's cello has this end pin that keeps it up off the floor. You play it between your knees, and you use a bow just like we used on the violin and the viola. So the cello is much lower because it's so much bigger. Why don't you play your lowest note? Very low. And now why don't you play a really high note, kind of show the range. It can go really high up there, really high. So the cello and the bass, which we'll talk about in just a minute, something about those instruments, they cannot ride the bus home. So if you're going to play the cello, you need to make sure you've got a ride to school on your orchestra day so that your cello has a ride to school. But what I'm going to do now is have Sean play a little song on the cello so you hear what it sounds like. So we are now at our final instrument, the bass, which you can see is the biggest member of the string family. And I have my friend Wade here to show us a little bit more about the bass. So the first thing you'll notice, it's so big, you have to stand up to play it. You cannot play it sitting down in a chair, regular chair, it's just too big. You'll see that the strings are much bigger than the other instruments. And the bow, if you could hold your bow up, Wade, the bow too has a different kind of shape to it. It's much chunkier than the other instruments. So why don't you play your lowest note? You'll hear how low it is. Yes, it's so low. The bass can also play up high a bit too. Why don't you play a higher note just to give you an idea of the range? Yeah, it's got a very pretty tone when you play it up high. Now, just like the cello, the bass cannot go on the bus, so you'll need to make sure you have a ride to school on the day that you have orchestra. Now we're going to have Wade play a little song for us.
Now that you've heard all of the information about the Hudson Orchestra program, here are your final steps to getting your students signed up for orchestra for the fall. First, have a conversation with your student. Help them choose what instrument they might like to play. You will then need to take that Eckroth music document to size them for their chosen instrument. 2, fill out the Google form that is the registration for the actual Hudson Orchestra program. It is absolutely critical that this Google form is returned so we know that your child is wanting to do orchestra in the fall. 3rd, sign up for an instrument rental with Eckroth Music. You will need that size of the instrument to set up your rental contract. If by chance you already have an instrument, perhaps a family instrument or an instrument that you found somewhere else, please contact either myself, Rachel Nipfer, or Britt Peterson to have us be able to check over that instrument to make sure that it's in good working order and is appropriate for your child. All of this information, and maybe even a little more, is found on the Hudson Elementary Orchestra website. We hope to see your child in orchestra in the fall. Please let us know if you have any questions. Thanks so much.